Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to For StarCraft 2 Strategy, your number one location for step-by-step strategy and tutorial videos. Today we're going to be taking a look at a Terran strategy, the Marine Marauder Medevac Ball. Now I know none of you have ever heard of this strategy, it's brand new, cutting edge. Nope, that's a huge lie. Pretty basic, pretty standard stuff from Terran. Really strong mix of units, getting the Marines, Marauders, and the Medevacs. Medevacs used for the dual purpose of healing and lifting off, to adding additional harassment with your Marines and Marauders. And then the Marines are a nice anti-air, and the Marauders do really well against armored ground units. So it's basically a really strong mix, coupled with upgrades such as Stim Pack and the Combat Shield for the Marine, as well as the Concussive Shell for the Marauders. It's very, very strong. Very, very strong against Protoss opponents especially. It's definitely a really good build to go versus Protoss players. I know a lot of people are probably going to hate me for posting this because the last thing anyone wants to see is more MMM balls, but I'm trying to cover all the strategies in these videos, so here we go. Starting off, basic 10 supply depot, going to follow that up with the 12 barracks. Before I get too far into things, just make the note here that in this replay, the MMM strategy we're looking at is from a game between the Muslim as our Terran player and Nani is our Protoss player. Both really good players. You're actually going to see some really strong micro in this game. I'll be sure to point it out and give you guys a little bit of tips and hints as far as how to micro properly and how and why it's effective. As you can see here, a little bit of probe harass from the Protoss player trying to kill off our SCV who's building the barracks. We will stop that at all costs. Two things you can do. You can bring up an SCV to attack the probe, forcing him to stop attacking this one or else he'll die. Or you can also bring up an SCV to repair your probe. That works very well as well. So again, we had that barracks at 12 supply. We followed that up with a refinery while the barracks is building. Getting that Orbital Command at 16, again, very standard stuff. Pretty much the basic as far as openings is concerned for Terran players, and it's from this point that players tend to divulge. They go for that, again, the 10 supply depot, 12 barracks refinery, the Orbital Command at 16, and then things change from there depending on what they're trying to do. Taking a look at our Protoss opponent here, he's going for that Cybernetics core with that one gateway. Obviously the purpose of that is to get that Stalker out to stop any early game Reaper harass, because it can be really devastating if you are unable to get that Stalker out. So that's the purpose of that. Also getting that probe in the base. We're dropping that half refinery. Now, the purpose behind doing that, it's going to delay them from getting that additional gas, obviously. But, I mean, we don't want to fully build it, so just getting like a half refinery, or not even half, this is like a 1/8 refinery. It just takes up the spot, and it forces him to build a unit to kill it, or else he won't be able to get gas anytime soon. So that's basically the purpose of that. He's kind of forced to get out the zealot if he wouldn't have otherwise to kill off this refinery, or else he's going to be really behind as it comes to Vespian. Now, fortunately, on this side of the equation here, for us, the Terran player, we don't really need to get a second gas early. With this build, we're basically going to be working on just getting barracks, getting Marines and Marauders, and then once we start building our factory, then we want to go ahead and go into the second gas, because we're going to need more gas for the Medevacs. So, okay, second gas is coming right now, not quite when the factory is here, and actually I'll go ahead and pull this up for you guys so you can take a look at the production tab. Now we are getting this Reaper out here. We aren't intending to do a ton of damage with that. That's not necessarily the purpose. Getting this delayed Reaper, or rather getting a Reaper that's not immediate in the beginning of the game. So getting this delayed Reaper, yeah, it's just going to allow you to get some really good scouting information. You're going to be able to run into their base, skirt along the edges, see what they have as far as buildings are concerned, and get a good idea of what you're going to be coming up against. Dropping this bunker at the front of our base, I am going to say that it's definitely very vital in Terran vs Protoss that you try to get this bunker at the front if you don't plan on playing super early aggressive, because if they move out and hit you, a lot of times with the Stalkers and Zealots early in the game, especially before you have Stim Pack, it can be very dangerous and very deadly for you. But getting this bunker kind of really reinforces the front. It really fends off any pushes that you might be seeing from Stalkers, Sentries, and Zealots early on in the game. It also allows you to work on massing up and getting those additions to your building, getting the tech labs and getting the reactors, and not have to worry too much. Now, a lot of times, say for example, we wanted to build this reactor, but we hadn't put this bunker up here. then what would have happened is, if had he pushed out at that point when we needed that bunker, we would not have had enough units, because instead of building Marines out of this barracks, we spent the time building that reactor. And that's basically the idea behind it. But as you can see, though, after he did get the reactor up and he saw that there was no push coming, then he just went ahead and dropped that bunker, because it's no longer necessary now that we have our production buildings fully up and ready. We do have our factory coming out right now as well, because obviously, again, we're going to be transitioning into getting medevacs, so we're going to need a factory in order to build our starport. Getting the engineering bay, purpose is twofold: to get the upgrades for our ground units. Also, the reason behind getting it is that in case we need to build any missile turrets, just in case we saw that DT might be coming, or in case we saw that void rays might be coming. Now, we did move in here with our Reaper Scout, and we'll show you exactly what we saw. We saw all his buildings. We saw that he did have this Stargate up, so we are aware that one of two things are going to be happening: either Phoenixes or Void Rays. Now, it does turn out in this particular matchup that he was going for Phoenixes, but the good thing is, either way, the response to Phoenixes and or Void Rays is the same thing, and that would be the Marine. In this particular build, going for the MMM ball, if you're going to be seeing Void Rays or Phoenixes, just go ahead and make a few more Marines, and that should do a pretty good job of fending them off. Basically, what the Protoss player is attempting to do here is try to move in and try to lift off our workers and stop them from producing, and kind of just harass them a little bit. So what we did here too, another quick note, is it's kind of the same way when we're going for that really fast tech builds. What we do is we build a addition onto one building, and then when the building we want the addition on is finished building, we lift it off and swap it. Okay, that sounded kind of weird. Basically, to be more specific, is what happened is we had our factory up and we started building our starport. Now, we know that we're going to want a reactor on our starport, but instead of waiting for the starport to finish building and then waiting for the time for the reactor to build, what we do is we build the reactor on the factory, and then once the starport is finished building, we lift off the factory and drop it in place, drop the starport in place of it, so we have automatic use to that reactor and we don't have to wait. So we are pushing out here with this Marine Marauder ball. We also have these medevacs tailing right up behind us. Going to be very good healing our units and also lifting them off to do some more harassment. Now, here you can see this is what I'm talking about. Microing your units back. This is very, very important, especially against this amount of charged zealots. Had he not done this, had we not pulled our Marines and Marauders back, back shoot, had we not done that, the zealots would have just chopped them down instantly. They would have ran up, they would have killed them all very quickly, and that would have been the end of the game. Not the end of the game, but it would have been the end of our forces at least. And basically what the point of that is that, you know, you can have this set amount of forces, and if you just move them into a group like that, they're gonna die. If you just attack moved into that group of zealots, they would have died. But since we pulled back and shot and pulled back and shot and pulled back and shot, it's effectively good micro. It's effectively keeping your units alive, taking advantage of their range, and here we go. You're going to see it again, pulling back and shooting. And that's ideally what you want to do versus a heavy zealot force when you're facing a Protoss opponent. Now, fortunately, he does block us in here, stopping us from being able to pull back like that. What we're going to do is we're going to lift off real quick, drop some outside, and then use the medevac to get that vision of the high ground to keep sniping at them. And then once that force field drops, we can obviously move right in from there. Continuously building from our production buildings here. As you can see, we have all of our buildings hotkeyed, so that's going to allow us to continuously reinforce this fight. Did move up there with the High Templar. I actually just want to show that because that was a really good play. So what we pushed up here, and what he's trying to do is, if this medevac had more energy, he actually would have killed it, because he's moving up with these High Templar. He does a feedback on the medevac and then instantly turns them into an Archon. That was an excellent play by the Protoss player. Stopped us basically from sniping the High Templar after they were out of energy by transforming them into an Archon. But we're still going to keep pushing forward. We're still going to keep up our production, and we're going to keep up the pressure. We also managed to have the time to build a Ghost Academy. Eventually what we're going to want to do is get out a Ghost or two for their EMP. But at the moment, you know, we're really just sticking with this pressure, trying to do as much damage as possible, because we have effectively broken into their base, and they are on the defensive at this point. It's really just a matter of amassing our forces and pushing back in, and trying to do as much damage as possible. So what we're going to actually be doing here is taking advantage of the fact that medevacs are able to lift off, and we're going to be going in the back end of his base, because at the moment he's not aware of that. Now, he's going to see at this point that we are finally moving to the back end of this base, but had he been aware of that prior, he would have had his forces here and ready, and he could have done a lot more damage. Taking a look here at another battle, again, microing around, trying to stay away from those zealots' melee attacks. That's when you're going to be most effective. That's going to be the best use of your units. Again, just having them sit there and shoot, they're going to get shot down by the zealots, and it's basically going to just be a huge waste. So taking a look back at our base here we are with the reinforcements moving. We also have dropped down this expansion here, and that's another key thing to note. A lot of times when you're doing these really aggressive attacks, these really aggressive pushes, and trying to do a lot of damage to your opponent, you can use that time as a distraction to go ahead and get up an expansion, take an economic advantage. I mean, as you can see, we have this base is pretty much almost done, but we do have it fairly well saturated, and we have our expansion really well saturated as well. I'm not worrying about the refineries at the moment because, again, this build isn't very gas heavy. It's a lot more mineral intensive. And that's another reason why it's a very effective build, because Marines and Marauders cost a lot more minerals than they do Vespian. Obviously, Marines cost no Vespian, and Marauders are only 25 Vespian. So you can really mass up an army almost entirely off minerals, aside from the fact that the medevacs cost a lot of Vespian. But you really only need 4 to 6 for most of the game. Maybe later on in the game, when you start to mass a 200 army, you'd have a decent amount more, between 10 and 15. But yeah, I mean, it's a really strong build. Again, units are very effective versus a variety of opposition. Medevacs allowing for the healing as well as the lifting off and dropping for additional harass. Using that time of attack for an expansion to get an even stronger economic advantage. And yeah, there you go. This has been a pretty good look here at the Marine Marauder Medevac combo, the strategy, the army composition. We'll take a look here at the build order real quick. We started off with that 10 supply depot, followed that up with the 12 barracks, and then we went ahead and we got our refinery, saturated that, and then from there basically what we do is we get some more barracks, we get these attachments, we get the tech labs, we get the reactor on 1 to 2 of them depending on how many barracks you end up building. In this particular game we were going with 3. You also of course want to get that factory, and then start building a starport when you can. And of course, when the starport is building, it's a really good idea to attach this tech lab or this reactor onto your factory. And that way, what's going to happen is as soon as the starport's done building, you can lift off the factory and then drop the starport in place where the reactor is, and start getting those double medevacs instantaneously. And of course, remember, good micro, always really important. Try to keep away from those zealots early game. Try to pull your units back using that stim pack and that speed advantage, and then also reinforce your units as much as possible. Make sure you have these buildings hotkeyed and rallied to your opponent's base. So again, guys, this has been for StarCraft 2 Strategy, your #1 location for step-by-step strategy and tutorial videos. If you like what we're doing here and you like what you see, please do go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Keep watching and keep owning, guys. Basically, he's ramping up his Void Ray right now to the highest level of attack. So that way, once we warp in these 3 Zealots and we move in, we're going to have a very powerful Void Ray. Going to take down these Zealots pretty quickly. The Terran players